The Ukrainian resistance is much stronger than Vladimir Putin anticipated. In addition to that, Ukraine is constantly getting weapons and support from other countries, which lets me assume that in one way or another, Russia will eventually lose in this war. So I decided to speculate a little bit and came up with 3 possible scenarios for Russia and the rest of the world. What will happen if Putin loses the war? What's up, investors, it's the Russian Dude, and today let me present you some potential outcomes of this Russian-Ukrainian war. The first one is I call a Crimean Scenario, which basically means the following. At this very moment, Russia is mainly focusing on the east of Ukraine because one of its main original goals was to liberate the region of Donbass. And so it has been several reports that at this very moment approximately 90% of Lugansk region is already under the control of Russia. So let's say Russia will be successful in its liberation of Donbass. And I think that in this case, Russian infiltrators will do a referendum about joining Russia, just like they did in Crimea back in 2014. And I mean, of course, no one will accept the results of this referendum, especially Ukraine, but at least Vladimir Putin will be able to tell his people that this special military operation was a complete success. He said that the original goal of Russia of liberating Ukraine from Nazis was successfully achieved, and now there will be big celebrations across the entire Russia. Most likely the shootings and the bombings will stop, and Russia might even call back its forces from Ukraine. And obviously Ukraine and Western countries will be extremely unhappy that Russia is calling this Donbass region their own territory, but the response of Russia will be as always, yeah, whatever. But I think that eventually the West will give up, because once again there is no more shootings and no more killings and no more bombings, and they will accept this cease of fire as kind of the end of the crisis. And that is why I kinda call it a Crimean Scenario, because now almost no one except Russia and Ukraine cares who Crimea belongs to, but we all know that Crimea is a part of Ukraine. And by the way, if you like hearing me rambling like this, in addition to my daily news reports on Russian-Ukrainian war, feel free to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Also, please make sure to check the link in the description if you wish to receive additional content such as daily Zoom calls and Q&A sessions. Thanks so much, and let's continue. The second scenario, I call it the conditional defeat of Russia. Ukrainian forces will be able to push Russians away from its territories and not even let them take the Donbass region. At this point, Putin will most likely try to liberate at least some small city so he can claim this small victory to his people. But most likely he will fail here as well. And in this case, I think that the narrative of Putin will be as following. We helped the occupied territories as much as we could, and we liberated them from these Ukrainian Nazis and their commanders. And that is why we are now letting these free regions to go on with their lives by themselves. Russia gave them all the necessary support, and now they're on their own because they're free after all. But in case they ask for help, Russia will be always there to help them. And in case this scenario becomes the reality, I expect that the Russian officials will start preparing the people of Russia for potential defeat way in advance. And they will be saying things like this. Oh, we don't really need the south of Ukraine. Lugansk at this moment is a much bigger priority. They will also be constantly telling that Russia is achieving all of their goals, which is, by the way, is happening at this very moment. And by the way, you already might notice this, but the Russian narrative regarding Ukraine is already changing. So now, instead of saying that they will defeat every single Ukrainian Nazi, Russian officials are now saying that they're hoping that negotiations between Russia and Ukraine will resume. So as you can see, they might be potentially preparing the Russian population for this soft landing. And that is why I think this conditional defeat of Russia scenario might happen. And the third scenario is the total surrender of Russia. This might be the most awaited scenario for Ukrainians, but unfortunately the chances of this happening are way smaller. So once again, this scenario means that Russia won't be able to achieve any of its goals. But instead of trying to create a soft landing for himself, Putin might get desperate and try to win this war at all costs. Which means that he might potentially become more relentless and order the bombings of the entire territory of Ukraine. And he might actually announce the countrywide mobilization, because Russia obviously will need much more soldiers. In this case, most Russians will see his true face and intentions. And I'm pretty positive that his support and trust will drop significantly. Because of this, there will be internal protests in addition to the pressure from the outside of Russia. And most likely even his closest advisors will turn against him. Because to be honest, it is not even longer a secret that some of his closest people do not like how the things are going, they're just afraid to do anything about it. As a result, the government might be overthrown, and Putin, along with his highest government officials, might be prosecuted at a tribunal. Which, by the way, the creation of this special international tribunal has already been initiated in Europe. And now really quick bonus scenario 3.5, the unthinkable one. Because I'm pretty positive all of you want to know if he's going to press the button. And to be honest, I don't think this is going to happen because he is not the only person who has this nuclear briefcase. Because it takes the agreement of several people and they all need to activate these nuclear codes at the same time so that they can only initiate the nuclear attack. Which basically means that this is an extremely unlikely scenario. And I'm almost certain that if Putin shows even the slightest intent to press the button, this will be the last drop of patience in the bucket of his closest circle.